It's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Malcolm John Baker. We'll be discussing his book, Merlin's Secret, the first part of a 4-part series, 3 of which have been published. 1 is still in creation. So definitely do yourself a favor and start looking into that. That's available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, but don't stop there. If you want to get everything that Malcolm has comprised for us and really learn everything that he's laid out and get the full experience, go directly to his personal website, malcolmjohnbaker.us. That's malcolmjohnbaker.us. There, not only will you find this title, but you'll find all the other titles that Malcolm has in his repertoire as well. And just so you guys are aware, there's 7 in totality. Okay, so there's a lot to choose from. Go directly to his site. There, you'll find more information on the titles, find more information on Malcolm himself, and you'll be able to purchase the books directly from that. So one more time, that's malcolmjohnbaker.us. Malcolm was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business. Chapters Media Publishing. If you have a book that you'd like moved, move it through Chapters Media. You can find them at chaptersmedia.us. And guys, I am so excited to have Malcolm here on the line with us because, listen, the book we're going to be discussing, Merlin's Secret. All right, right off the bat, you see the name Merlin, you instantly start to formulate an idea or an impression, right? We've heard that name before, Merlin, right? With King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. We know about it. We know really what it's going to be revolving around. But I love the series that Malcolm has put together for us because it takes that story and the little bit that we know about Merlin, but it really turns it on its head. And I'm sure you haven't heard a story about Merlin quite like this. And listen, Malcolm is going to go into all the nuances for us and really explain exactly the pleasures of this book. And he can do it much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's bring him here on the line with us. Malcolm, first and foremost, man, thank you so much for being a guest with us on People of Distinction. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks, Benji, and thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to talk to you.
Likewise. Well, listen, we are very excited to have you on here on the line. I mean, these titles, all of which that you've written, sound absolutely incredible. So I'm really excited to jump in. Now, before we go into Merlin's Secret, let's hold off just a bit. Let's build that temptation a little bit more. Tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself, Malcolm.
Yes, certainly, Benji. I'm as you might gather from my funny accent, I'm actually British. I'm 75 years of age. I retired from a professional life in Britain a few years ago, and I came to live in America. And I needed something to occupy myself, so I took up writing. Mm-hmm. I have had many stories in my mind for many years. I've never been a writer before. But now I've published 7 books.
Malcolm, that is quite the story. So just so that I have this correct, this is not something, again, as you said, you have 7 books. That's quite the feat. So this is not something that you've been doing all your life or something that you started when you were younger. This started after you moved here?
Yes, indeed. I didn't write at all. I loved travel, however, and all my books revolve in some way around my travels. For example, in one book I wrote last year, I was in Indonesia. We had an earthquake there. Now, I've never been in an earthquake before, and it was quite an experience. But that went straight into the book that I was writing, which is called Which is the Clone?
Wonderful. Well, listen, write what you know, right? Write what you experience.
Yes. All my books have a certain element of, well, more than a lot of research, frankly.
Fantastic. Malcolm, this is wonderful, man. Let's jump right in. Merlin's Secret. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Right. Merlin's Secret, being British, two of my hero, well, I don't know about hero is the right word, but two of the fables that I'm interested in is one is King Arthur and the other one is Robin Hood. Now, Robin Hood, I'm sure we all know, he was just a highwayman. King Arthur, did he exist? I don't know. Nobody really knows whether he existed. He probably, the stories, the fables are probably built around jesters, court jesters, who I won't say made up stories, but they built stories up. And
Absolutely.
so my thoughts were, how could these possibly be actually true? So I set about working out a method that it could be true, and that is Merlin's Secret. Merlin's Secret is about a young kid of today. He's in his early 20s, but he's got into bad company. And he is being watched over by a ghost of the Lady of the Lake from King Arthur days. Her name is Vivian, and she is looking for somebody to take back to King Arthur to make the legend that we know of. And that's exactly what she does with my Merlin. Of course, his name wasn't Merlin then. It was Robert Hunt. And he goes back to those days. He's a kid who's just got into bad company. But of course, he does take back with him knowledge of today. So he takes back the knowledge of how to make electricity from very simple means, how to make salt or get salt out of the sea and things like this. And he builds up, he builds his own character. And of course, the ghost is watching him all the time. And once he finishes the episode with King Arthur, he then moves on to Robin Hood and converts the highwayman into the legend that we know.
Fantastic.
It's interesting.
No,
it's a different story to the Merlin that has been on television. He's basically a time traveler.
Absolutely.
And of course, in books 2 and 3 and 4, he travels through medieval times, coming right up to World War II, quite frankly.
That is absolutely incredible. It's almost like a Doctor Who, right? I mean, he's time traveling.
It is. It is a Doctor Who. You're quite right. Yes, I like that. I could have called it Doctor Who. But, yes. That's exactly what he is. He's a time traveler, and he goes into certain things that had to happen on a particular date. Book 2, in fact, deals with 2 incidents in the Middle Ages. One is the Battle of Agincourt in France, which, of course, Shakespeare wrote about in Henry V, Part 2, and also the Spanish Armada. Interestingly enough, so that is actually Book 2. He deals with both those events. But Agincourt must only happen on a particular field at a particular time. And he has to make sure that the army gets there on that particular time because he knows when it should be.
Absolutely. Malcolm, this is all so incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. So, listen, we know about your background. We know about this incredible book. Talk to us in terms of your inspiration. I mean, I'm still stuck on the fact that you had your entire professional life going, and then it wasn't until after retirement that you really embarked upon this journey and started writing books, and then you wrote 7 of them. I mean, listen, man, I interview authors all the time, and there's some authors that have been putting the work towards this for their entire lives and haven't gotten to the point where they've written 7 books. So absolutely so commendable towards you, and it lends a lot of credence to you as a writer. That's so impressive. Talk to our listening audience about your inspiration. Not only what inspired this particular series of books, starting with Merlin's Secret, but what inspired you to become a writer?
I don't know, really, truthfully. I mean, all my life I have enjoyed films, adventure films. I don't like films that are I don't know, but I like an adventure film.
Mm-hmm.
And all my books are written specifically for adventure films. The one thing I will say is that when I'm writing a book, I find, although I might start it off in a certain direction, I find the book writes itself, the characters write themselves, and it can often turn out in a completely different way to how I intended. It's quite strange. Interesting. I mean, in book 2 of Merlin, I have a conversation with William Shakespeare. Now, my books are all mainly dialogue. Well, I mean mainly, but there's a lot of dialogue in them. So can you imagine speaking to William Shakespeare? What would you say to this guy?
What is
interesting?
Yeah, exactly. And listen, the point that you just brought up, that is something. Yeah, I'm an artist as well. I'm an actor and a filmmaker based here in Los Angeles, and so much of my background was predominantly based in theater. And listen, I've probably have performed in maybe every single one of Shakespeare's plays. In terms of his histories, I've only performed in King Henry IV. So that was the only history play. But all of the other ones, I've worked with it in some way, and I'm a huge Shakespeare fan, and I love his writing. So that is something for me that I'm just. The moment you even brought that up, I'm just like, oh man, I would love to. The questions that I would ask him.
Yeah. See, that was the things that I did. My Merlin was he's not, his name's not Merlin by that time, by the way. I mean, he's changed it to something else. But he's in the army that goes to Agincourt, and of course he hears King Henry V's speeches and writes them down, and then he takes them when he gets home up to Shakespeare. Or rather Stratford-on-Avon, where Shakespeare's family are, and he leaves them there. The grandfather thinks he's mad, there's a lot of comedy in all my books, quite frankly, because they're subjects that are comical. I mean, in a way.
Absolutely.
Although I wouldn't class them as comedy, but I mean, they are interestingly comical. And then, of course, he actually makes Shakespeare, 100 years later, and he has this conversation with him about the speeches of Henry V, and he said, well, they were nothing like what you said. And he said, well,
Malcolm,
I mean, the reality is, of course, he's talking to, soldiers. He's not going to be talking to an audience.
Of course.
Which Shakespeare wrote, of course.
The little just funny little anecdote, hearing you say that, it's kind of like you've just opened up Pandora's box, because Shakespeare's text has been under so much scrutiny over years in terms of whether he actually wrote it or not, and now you're bringing it in. He didn't steal it from other playwrights. He actually received it from Merlin, time traveling and giving him the speeches that way.
That's right. But of course, the truth of the matter on that particular thing with Shakespeare, I mean, when he was in London as a young man, and they met in the pubs and had drinks with all these playwrights. So of course they exchanged their ideas, but it's only the ideas that are. I mean, they were written by Shakespeare. I'm positive of it, frankly.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, the ideas may well be exchanged.
Absolutely. Listen, this is a conversation that I can have with you for hours. I am, again, being such a huge Shakespeare fan myself, I definitely am one of even if he did get ideas or influences from other people, he still had to write the text. And that is really where the beauty lies in terms of Shakespeare's language and how it's been able to survive for 400 years. The man was a genius in what he was able to create and orchestrate.
Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And so many of our stories that we see in films and movies, everything, they are actual Shakespeare stories. They just twist the tale around.
Of course. Absolutely. Malcolm, this is fantastic. Guys, again, here on the line with Malcolm John Baker. We're discussing his book, Merlin's Secret. Again, it's the first in a 4-part series, 3 of which have been published. 1 is still in creation. All available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or you can go directly to his personal website, malcolmjohnbaker.us, to find more and also be able to purchase this and other titles that he's written. Now, Malcolm, next question that I want to go into, man. Listen, for someone of your caliber that has written as many books as you have and is still in your journey, I mean, you have a couple of other books that you're getting ready to put out as well. So we're not quite done yet. Talk to us.
No.
I'd love to know, how did writing your first book maybe influence your way of writing?
I've always written. My first book was actually called Revenge Is Mine. It was written about 3 or 4 years ago about ISIS. It was at the time that you guys were sending over cruise missiles and blowing up people's houses, etc. You know, and the point of the book is that cruise missiles come over to kill these 2 generals. The generals are not killed, but their families are. So they set about the task of coming to the US with the aim to kill the president. Tit for tat, as it were, you
Absolutely.
know. And whole story, which then comes into an FBI, CIA, all along the way. And it's interesting. So that was my first book, and also how to get into America. It's a very interesting method of how to get into America in that book. And in fact, at the last page, I said, FBI and Homeland Security, please note, because it was actually written about Tampa in Florida. And I mean, the cruise ships are so near the mainland, the other side of the dock, as it were, that somebody could get over quite easy, quite frankly. So all my books have been written on incidents. Another book is called From a Jack to a King, and it's basically an adventure, treasure hunting, and it's about ships that were sunk in the Caribbean in 1500s, and they extract the gold and this, that, and the other. It ends up in Mexico, in the Mayan underground villages.
Oh wow!
Fascinating. I've seen so many things in my life on travel, so I write incidents about them. I mean, not pure fiction. All my books are fiction, and but nevertheless, you make up a little anecdote.
Absolutely.
And I love to see these anecdotes. You know, but when you walk down the road, you see something that is strange, unusual. Goes straight in my book always.
That's fantastic. You know, I love that just about artists on a whole, right? And really that creative spark of inspiration, and how one simple idea can start off as a snowflake, but then accumulate into a snowball as it kind of, continues to grow and escalate that way. So I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Malcolm, last question as we're kind of tying things up. This has been an absolute fantastic interview. Thank you so much for sharing everything. I would be remiss if I didn't ask this. As I stated, being an artist myself, talking and having this platform where I'm working with artists all the time, an author of your caliber has written so many books, is in the process of writing more, working through this option potentially of getting picked up, and worked out for Netflix. I mean, this is fantastic. I would definitely feel like I let my viewership down if I didn't ask the question, what advice could you give a new writer, somebody just starting off, what to expect in terms of, not only with their writing and how to continue to keep that creative spark going, but maybe also some of the pitfalls to watch out for, as you hinted towards, in terms of publishing and self-publishing that way?
Right. Yes. Yeah, I think there's two reasons why, and also rights, to be honest. One is to have a nice bookshelf with his books on it, and that's it, and that's fine. I mean, that doesn't cost an arm and a leg, frankly. But if you want to go any further in the general profession, whether it be films or traditional publishing, that's when it costs money, and you really do need money. To be honest, I've spent $250,000 this year alone.
Wow.
So you are talking about big money if you're going to go down the line, as it were. But if you just want to write a book that's going to sit on your bookshelf, or you can sell to your friends, that's fine. That would be my advice. Go self-publishing. Check out the deals that you can get. I won't mention any names, but I mean, there are a lot of companies self-publishing that are doing deals. Shop around, be prepared. You do need to have a book edited. I will say, a book it must be edited, unless you're but most people need to have a book edited. I always have mine edited.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that makes so much sense. And listen, guys, anything worth doing, it's gonna come with an investment, right? And there's
things. It is an investment.
Exactly. There's things that you're gonna have to think about, and it really depends on the magnitude in which, as Malcolm said, the magnitude in which you want to take it. If you just want to have the book on your shelf, it's not going to require as big of an investment. If you really want it to go far, there's going to be, more of an investment that's required. But at the end of the day, ultimately, if this is your passion, if this is your craft that you really want to devote your time and energy towards, it's going to require a lot of time and focus that way. Malcolm, thank you so much for sharing.
Mine was films. I mean, my definitely aim is definitely films. And that's why I've spent so much on it, quite frankly. But I mean, if you just want to publish your book, for 3,000 or 4,000, well, in fact, less than that, quite frankly, you can get a book published and they'll give you 30 books or something, to put on your mantelpiece.
Absolutely. There you go. Well, listen, do the research for yourself. Really make sure that before you make any decision, you've weighed out all the options. That's fantastic. What great pieces of advice.
That's true.
Guys, listen. One last time, here on the line with Malcolm John Baker. We finished discussing his book, Merlin's Secret. Again, it's a 4-part series. That's the first book in it, 3 of which have been published. Last one is going to be out very shortly. It's still in creation. All his titles, because again, remember, as I stated, there's 7 books in totality. All of his titles are available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But again, if you want to truly capture everything that Malcolm has in store, go directly to his website to get the full experience, malcolmjohnbaker.us. You'll be able to find each title there, find more information on the titles as well as Malcolm himself, and you'll be able to purchase the book directly from the website. Also, do yourself a favor. We're all spending a lot of time at home right now, and I know it's a tough situation for a lot of us to be in, and we're stuck, not able to leave the confines of our houses physically. We'll pick up these titles that Malcolm has laid out for you, and you'll guaranteed be able to leave the confines of your home, if not physically, mentally, take these journeys that he's laid out for us. Malcolm, thank you so much for being a guest with us on People of Distinction.
And thank you, Benji. Thank you. Good to speak to you. Good to speak to you.